Hi there, in this video we're going to do kind of like some motion blurry effect, mainly so that I can show you how you can apply effects to individual parts of this essential graphics panel and not affect everything in it. You can do little parts. So let's jump in here and kind of make this slidey blurry thing. All right, let's add that blur effect. Okay, so let's find it in your effects panel. Let's type in Gaussian, or at least the first 3 letters. Find it, drag it on to the clip we want it to add it to. And if we crank it up, where is it? Gaussian blur, crank it up. It's doing it to the logo and the text and the background, so that's not what we want. What ends up happening is, let's have a look now. Because we've got this more complex essential graphics kind of panel, okay, see Gaussian blur gets stuck at the top, it affects everything underneath it. So if I drag it underneath the logo, can you see it affects the text, but not the logo now. So you need that structure to work for you. And in our case, what we want to do is, let's say that we want it to be, because I want it to do the text, but not the background, because the background's gone all blurry. Can you see, let's turn that off. Eyeball on and off. Can you see it's blurred the background? You can kind of see the edges there. I want just the text. How do I do that? That's where these folders come in handy. If you didn't have a folder, okay, you're not going to be able to do just the text, but because it's in its own bin, okay, so you make a bin, you can drag your text into it. I'm going to delete that one. Let's do them all. Let's pretend you don't have a bin. You come out. Okay, let's get rid of that. Let's say you don't have a bin. Okay, so I want the Gaussian to only apply to this text. You make a bin. We call it text. You're with me, right? Test every time. Okay, and just make sure it is above our text. But because it's inside this little bin, it doesn't kind of come out here and grab the background. You see it's not touching the background at all. Background is A-OK. So Gaussian blur, let's animate it over time. Okay, so let's have a look at the beginning. So our little animation goes like this, kind of slides down. Okay, so at the beginning I want it to be really blurry, and at the end here I want it to not be blurry. So how blurry? Let's have it Gaussian blur selected. Okay, and what I want to do is I want to over here find it, which can be troubling or problematic. Okay, have a look through here. There it is, finally found it. Okay, I want the blurriness in my case to be just vertical, up and down, because I want it to feel like it's moving this way. If you're from After Effects land, you'll know that there's a button just called motion blur, and it knows all of this. We've got to kind of fake it here in Premiere Pro. So blurriness, how blurry? I don't know, it's up to you. That looks good to me. So I want it to be at 124 at the beginning, so while it's moving fast. And then after, when it comes into land, okay, how do I find it where it comes into land? In this case, I can kind of see my keyframe there. Is that it? No, that's my logo one. There's lots going on here, and you're like, man, how do you keep control of it all? One of the little filters might help. Remember, we can show only the keyframed properties. Actually, did we keyframe Gaussian blur? We haven't yet. So before we do that, let's turn, we're at the beginning of our document where I want it to be nice and fast. It's at 124. Let's set the little timer going. Okay, so I've got my first keyframe. Then we can say, actually, just show me the other properties that have keyframes. You can see it's tidied it up a bit. So there it is. There's my text. There is my position transform for my text. Welcome to your new. You're with me? Okay, so there it starts and there it ends. So I want my Gaussian blur to maybe end at the same time. So there's the Gaussian blur start. There's a position start. I want maybe the end to be there. So I can say jump across to it. There you go. And I can say, let's set it to 0. So they kind of match. It's not going to look great, but we're learning. So watch this. Zoop. It's kind of cool. It's got this weird like little distortion feel at the end there. Okay, so probably what I want to do is just grab this one in a little bit further that way, just so it stops blurring when it gets close to the end. Remember, Shift K will give you a nice little loop. That doesn't work unless you've got that down here selected. There we go. Shift K. Actually, let's set our in point and an out point. So O for out, I for in, hit the enter key on my keyboard, and it's just going to loop in there. Make sure your loop's on. All right. We can do the same thing for home office as well, because it kind of needs to get blurry on the way in. Let's do that together. You can select this, remember, and you can copy and paste things. I can grab this, copy, go to office, paste, and it's come along. But it's got all the wrong keyframes, and so it's not that helpful. So I'm going to undo that and just make my own. Okay, so All right, we want home office selected. I'm gonna be at the beginning. Let's drag Gaussian blur on. It's gonna affect everything underneath, which is no problem in this case. How blurry do I want it to be? I'm gonna drag it out so I can actually see it. And go to Gaussian blur. Now this is a really good point. I've still got that filter on. So I'm gonna be like, where's all the Gaussian blur stuff? It's because I said only show me keyframed properties, which can be problematic. So we've turned that off now. I can say, let's so horizontal. Let's crank it up. How blurry? About that much. Okay, so when it's starting, it kind of, my one here, your animation might be different. You see it starts slow, gets fast, and gets slow again. So mine goes, so blurring right at the beginning, does it make sense? So right at the beginning, it's going to be set to 0. Okay, then when it's at its height, okay, about there, I can kind of see it here. That's as fast as it's going to be. I'm going to crank it up to my 117 or whatever I feel like. Okay, and then the end there, close before it finishes, I'm going to set it back to 0. Did I actually turn the keyframes off? You didn't. You're like, he didn't hit the button. Let's do it all again. At the beginning, blurriness is at 0. I actually click this. Jeez, Dan. All right, get to the fastest bit, then crank it up to something. Feels good. Get to the last part, towards the end, not completely at the end, and I'm going to turn it back down to 0. Now I've actually got keyframes this time. Why do it once when you can do it twice? It's probably not blurry enough in the middle, so just make sure that you can use these little arrows or hold the shift key, snap between these. Okay, make sure you're on that keyframe, crank it up. How fast is it going? Enter on my keyboard so that it loops. That doesn't look very good at all. And you play with that for a long time to figure out what works best. Try again. That kind of feels naturalish, does it? Hey, it's what's going to do right now. All right, that is it. We added effects to our central graphics panel. You just got to make sure that they are in the right order. And if the order doesn't work for you, okay, create a group, okay, and jam the thing you want to blur along with the Gaussian blur on top of it inside of it, and you will be golden. All right, that's it. I'll see you in the next video.